They might be self-aware.
Listen, Gary here, discount voice talent. Currently hiding from my mother who thinks I should have become a dentist. Today on They Might Be Self-Aware, the guys discuss OpenAI using robots to decide if you're mature enough for serious conversations, which explains why they'd never hire me. Anthropic telling governments they can't spy on people, and some guy starving himself because he's scared of robot overlords, which honestly feels redundant since I'm already living that nightmare. This intro brought to you by someone whose career peaked at Please Hold. Enjoy the show!
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.
Egos, algorithms, and the machinery of madness. It must be, they might be self-aware. I am Hunter Powers, joined by the machinery himself.
Beep, boo. Oh no, sorry, it's Daniel Bishop.
Yo, Daniel Bishop in the house. Do people still say in the house? Is that like a thing?
Yeah, that's what the kids
hip,
are saying
right?
these days.
It's hip. Fly, it's fly. Is that what they would say? It's fly.
You come to me for the financial advice, and you come to Hunter for the timely slang.
I think
that's not what this episode or this podcast are about. We are about AI. We're about technology. We're about what's going on in the world that the kids aren't talking about because they're not allowed to talk about it because OpenAI said that they're not allowed to talk about it anymore.
Oh, you saw that one? Yeah.
I did see that one.
Well, there's like two interesting parts to that. So I guess there were some Senate hearings, and so now they're coming out saying, and this is also really weird, we're not going to allow people under 18 to have conversations about self-harm, including the very extreme version of self-harm.
Yep.
And that's weird from the 18 angle. Like, well, hold on a second. Like, once you're 19, whatever, dude. But below 18.
I think it's because, like, it's a worse look from a PR perspective, from a lawsuit's perspective of my product led to the harm or death of minors as opposed to adults.
I wonder if it doesn't, that part doesn't open them up to like a way more liability, because now they've disclosed we could stop you from having that conversation, but as long as you're 19, off with your head. But below that, you're good. Now there's one other part that I just want to put in this intro here about it, which is interesting, the technology, how they are going to determine if you are 18 and below is through a ML model that will look at your chats and predict your age. And if they're unsure, they may ask you for your ID, but just in general, they're going to use AI to predict your age.
Now, you mentioned the ask for your ID. That's starting to pop up for more websites across the US. A lot of people...
Oh, really, Daniel?
Included.
What kind of websites is it popping up for?
For social media, Hunter.
Oh, is that what it pops up for?
I had to do it to keep using Discord. Yes, it is.
Discord?
Yes. Yeah.
I haven't had to give my ID to Discord. Maybe are you a Nitro member?
I am.
Oh, okay, maybe that's it. I'm on the free tier.
I don't know what but perfectly legitimate. Thank you very much, Hunter. Mm-hmm. Websites are starting to be we're going to start collecting IDs, which doesn't feel great. I wonder if it's because the credit card that I had was in Texas, and Texas had some new laws associated with you're not allowed to have minors on certain, I guess on social media.
I'm pretty sure it just wasn't Discord, but okay.
Mm-hmm. Well. Either
back
way,
to the ChatGPTs.
The point is that you're going to maybe have to upload a license or an ID to say I am definitely this old. But even if not, using a machine learning model to look at your chats and say, this is definitely a mature, responsible individual.
I want to know how old it thinks I am
songs now. Or right. ChatGPT has a memory feature if you've got it turned on.
No,
you could go in and be like, how old do you think I am based on what we've talked about? And it's you talk about the original seasons of the Pokemon show a lot. So it can't be.
I feel like it'd be flattering. You'd be like, oh, yeah, you're probably 29.
You keep referring to the country of Yugoslavia, so we know that you're at least this old.
Back in the USSR.
Yeah. Yep. So
okay.
I think that there are plenty of words and phrases and topics that are more associated with a younger or older or whatever audience, I don't think that you could be super precise with saying, oh, this person's definitely 18. But whether or not OpenAI has completely figured out how to get exactly how old you are based on the chats that you've been having or the ID that you upload, they are gating certain sensitive topics behind are you not old enough to talk about them? And this is like, it seems like overreach, and it either is or it isn't, depending on how you see it. But they've been doing something very similar to this, but not as, dare I say, open for years now. Every new update, people get up in arms. Oh, it won't talk about X, Y, or Z. Oh, they completely neutered the model. It's totally censored. You can't talk about anything. Meanwhile, their anything is the really spicy stuff. And I used to be able to do these certain role play chats with the model. Now I can't. Well, is it better for OpenAI to say, like, look, these are more sensitive topics. This has at least allegedly contributed toward more than one death at this point. Would you please be willing to upload your ID and then we'll let you talk about it? As opposed to just all of the OpenAI model in general saying, I refuse to talk about this subject whatsoever.
It's a really weird issue. There was an interview with Sam recently where I think, and I might have this number wrong, but I think the number was 1,500 people a week talk about self-harm with ChatGPT. And that's like a pretty big number. But
It
I
sounds
guess
like a lot of number, but there's also a lot of people.
yeah, there are a lot of people, right? They have billions of users. But the opportunity there is, what if it could have a positive impact, right? I mean, if those 1,500 people went and talked to a licensed therapist, we wouldn't be having a conversation that say, licensed therapists should not be able to talk about self-harm. No, like, that's conceptually the correct thing. So, and
Yes.
ChatGPT's...
This is exactly what I did previously. We talked about this in a previous episode of have the OpenAI mascot, make it something fun and cool and hip. And it'll pop out.
Fly,
And be like,
Daniel. Fly is the word.
Thank you. And it'll say like, hey, looks like you're talking about self-harm. Would you like to talk to someone for free and anonymously about it? And if it's 1,500 people a week, compared to how much they're probably going to have to pay in whatever lawsuit ended up being associated with this, that I feel like the math's pretty good on that one.
The obvious play here is
Give
that
people the help that they need. If someone is reaching out and says, I need help, in their own roundabout way, so get them some help.
But the obvious
Especially
play
if
here
you're not the thing that can give it to them.
is that OpenAI should train on this scenario. They should optimize their model for being able to have a positive interaction. And I'm not talking about saying go talk to a therapist. I'm basically saying be the therapist. But can they do that? Or does that just give them so much legal liability that if they actually trained on the scenario of talking the person off the cliff, that then when the person jumps off the cliff...
Right. Well, they last talked to ChatGPT. I think depending on what article you read, what study you're looking at, or which of our episodes that you're listening to, yes, it can and should be working as a therapist because it seems to do better than a lot of human therapists, and it's available 24 hours a day, and it doesn't cost nearly as much. You don't have to you don't have to worry about whether or not you have insurance and this. Or, no, you shouldn't. It's a robot. It's going to give you weird, bad advice and ask you to embrace the darkness. And, if you have it go down some specific route, then it might start agreeing with you instead of trying to talk you off of said ledge. And we live in a world where both things can be true. Some people need help right now, but don't have the money to do X, Y, or Z, or the hotline was busy that they tried to reach out to, etc. And having someone to talk to is better than no one. But also with the ChatGPT psychosis type talk, these models are pretty good at yes-anding the path that you're on. And we've seen, especially related to a couple of those lawsuits of this model was involved in this person's death, at least allegedly, that the conversation that you go down with this thing, it can kind of help you embrace and positive feedback loop the thing that you're talking about. So both the positive and the negative currently exist. Are you suggesting that can we get to a point where it's only the positive? Everything else that they've tried so far keeps finding weird little jailbreaks or workarounds, or 2% of the time it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm not saying only the positive. I'm saying, could they? And obviously, technically they could, but could they with our current culture? Could they work on this specific use case from the perspective of we are acting as the therapist in these scenarios? Not I'm going to like basically cut you off and say, call this phone number, 1-800 blah, 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 blah to talk to someone. But actually, hey, like you already are having some degree of relationship or at a minimum communication. And I would suggest that given communication, there is some degree of relationship. I'm going to try to make the change right now. Arguably, they're in the best place to do it.
Right.
I just wonder whether they must have insane legal bills already. Is this just,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that they're trying to mitigate risk as a company. And I don't blame them for doing that. Yeah.
Well, let's stay on this thread of kind of topics that you're not allowed to discuss with the AI. One of your favorite companies, Anthropic, was in the news with some topics that they are banning people from discussing. Well, I guess not really people, but governments. And that's a little bit of an extrapolation there. But I think it was specifically, looking at my notes, it was surveillance. They're not allowed to use Anthropic's models for specifically domestic surveillance, which is always just like a weird thing. Right. And weaponization.
Right. The idea being that Anthropic is now trying to cozy up to the U.S. government for those sweet, sweet contracts, even though both them and OpenAI were like, we'll give it to you for $1. I don't know. They were saying, we'll give it to you for $1. So that's presumably to get their foot in the door and get you used to it. And then eventually the huge fees come later. But if Anthropic's being used, Anthropic is also then saying like, yeah, but you also shouldn't do like, domestic surveillance, for example. And the powers that be would rather be allowed to use these models to do those.
There's been like a long history of tech companies blocking domestic surveillance from, it's usually facial recognition. No, you can't do facial recognition using our tech stack. When they say domestic surveillance, do you think they mean something beyond facial recognition?
I think so, because Anthropic has never really led the field when it comes to like the image analysis. I think this, and like also a large language model isn't the appropriate thing to be using for facial recognition. There are facial recognition models out there. Use that if that's the surveillance they want to do. I think this surveillance has a lot more to do with email and Discord messages and texts and so on to try and like digital fingerprint. Is this person talking about something that we don't want them to be talking about? Is this the same person as from this other email address, that kind of thing.
Okay.
You can upload pictures and whatnot to Claude, but I don't think that that's what the government has in mind. Because if you're looking at like, is this picture of a person the same as this picture of a person? I certainly wouldn't want to be encouraging the use of a large language model for it. And I don't mean from a moral perspective. I mean from just like a performance perspective. That's not the correct tool for the use case.
Do you think this is ultimately a good move for Anthropic to be restricting its government usage, or is it, I don't know.
Well, in the very earliest days of large language models, there seemed to be, if we're talking about to the GPT-2 days where Sam Altman was like, it's too dangerous to release out into the world. I do think a smidge of that thread has remained all the way throughout, which is if we give complete, uncensored, whatever access to this thing to everybody, some people are going to use it for naughty stuff. Whether it be like bedroom naughty or like, terrorism naughty, to both very different kinds of naughty. There could be people that are going to use these models in ways that are harmful to themselves and to others. And from a business perspective, you don't want to be caught with the fingers pointing to you as to why did this thing happen. So I can understand why Sam Altman says this is too dangerous to release out into the world. GPT-2 is GPT 3.5, 4, 5. 4.5, then 4.1, then 5. Why not? I can understand why anybody is reticent against what we currently have, and also the race toward AGI. If we really do get to actual, real AGI, the world won't be the same world that we're in now. And of course, you can say, well, the world is going under a lot of change right now. Sure, yes. But I mean, like, if we get actual real AGI, the amount of catastrophic shift in what would then be from that point. If there was like a singular, we did it, it's AGI. If we get to that point, months later, everything has changed. It will be absolutely insane.
Are we going to get there?
Are we going to get, well, not with not with the current architectures that we have. There's plenty of people who've given plenty of spilled digital ink as to, are we going to reach AGI with this? And they keep saying, no, definitely not. Absolutely not. There's going to have to be some new neural network architecture, some new something that is that like quantum leap up to the point where we could get to real artificial general intelligence.
Are we going to get there though?
I think so, probably. And I keep using my X% of people, Y% of the time, Z% of cases argument, and all three of those numbers keep going up. So like for certain definitions, some people would probably say we've already hit the G for like general. It's not as good as people in some ways. But then you look at, let's see. Yeah, in India, there are some top firms, TCS, Infosys, the pipeline for new graduates going into be like these low-level tech workers, but still like, white-collar job. You need people who are smart to be able to do it. Hiring's gone down by over 70% in 1 year.
I am still so skeptical.
These people are generally human intelligence. They're going to be doing the kinds of tasks you'd expect a person to be able to do with a computer, generally speaking. General. I've now used that word too many times. I got semantic association and it doesn't mean anything to me. If that number is true, who knows if it is, but 70% in a year, what happens 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Do we have to even say we hit AGI to have automated away, not enhanced, but automated away 70, 80, 90% of jobs?
Do you actually believe that they reduced 70% of their workforce or 70% of their hiring because of AI?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I don't.
I think absolutely.
I don't think
let us suppose for a moment that year over year hiring went down 70%. I think a portion of it could be macroeconomic changes, or the U.S. friendliness toward foreign workers has kind of plummeted recently. Those may be contributing factors. I think more than 50% of that loss would be because a lot of the stuff that you'd have a bunch of low-paid entry-level people from places like India doing can be done by GPT 5, 4.
Let me give you a counterexample.
Whatever.
And maybe you can comment on that. So my counterexample would be Twitter, right? Elon comes into Twitter, famously fires 80% of the staff day one. You're out of here. And in general, the company keeps running at about the same pace. Some people would say it's a little worse. Some people would say it's a little bit better, but we can probably agree that it's about the same. 80% of the workforce cut. That was not AI. How did they do that? But this like Indian company who cuts 70%, that is AI.
I think because you already had a product, and you already had the server set up, and you already had the infrastructure, and you already had the X and the Y and the Z. Like Twitter, or X now, whatever, hasn't changed basically at all in a long time. And so do you need tons and tons of product managers and UI, UX designers and this and that when you're not changing anything? I've always imagined that some very large companies keep on entire groups that are like, our 6 months of this entire team was spent coloring in this one widget and like moving it slightly and changing its shape a little. And that always feels like super wasteful to me. There's a weird analogy that I'm going to make, but I feel it's basically the same thing. In what is now the modern day Czech Republic, or Czechia as they like to call themselves, I think both names work. Years and years and years and years ago, there were some extremely wealthy families that were like, we're going to build some beautiful chateaus and whatnot. And so you have these gorgeous like castles basically on top of the hills where the city is kind of built around it. You see a lot of this also in Italy, for example. And after they kind of ran out of these castles to keep making, we don't need another city with that. They took all of these very skilled artisans and said, well, we don't want to just like let them go back and then make pretty things for other people in other countries, go out into the woods and make some beautiful like sculptures and like a huge arch for no reason. I've been there. I've been in the middle of the woods and you're walking around and you're like, oh, that's 2/3 the size of the Arc de Triomphe and just as intricately detailed. Oh, there's like a Roman shrine of like the gods and goddesses and the pillars and everything. And it was like busy work to keep these artisans there and making the beautiful things, because otherwise they were going to go somewhere else where the pay would be just as good, but like there was work to do. I think the same thing's happening.
You think AI, this was responsible for that?
No, not AI. I think this is the not AI. This is the Twitter example of like that 80% of people that these are the modern day like artisans. They're actual artisans still, but I think you can understand what I mean here. A lot of those people aren't necessary to keep a large business going. Whereas if you look at the Infosys and the TCS and like these big Indian like tech whatever firms, a lot of those people are doing not the super high level skilled, top craftsman type things, but like the very barest bit of technical excellence. And that barest small junior whatever level of technical excellence can indeed be done by your ChatGPTs and their ilk.
All right, well, I'm going to come back again, but I'm going to stick with your Italian angle, and I'm going to bring up a famous Italian engineer, Vilfredo Pareto. Vilfredo.
Right, if there was more than one, it'd be Peretti. Yeah.
Pareto. Are you familiar with Mr. Pareto and his Pareto principle?
Oh, haha. I wasn't. Now I am. Got him.
Yeah. So the basic idea here is that, I guess, 80% of your output comes from 20% of your input. So 20% of the activities that you're doing are responsible for 80% of the output. So in a business, you look at everything that we do. Right. 20% of the work that we're doing is responsible for 80% of the revenue. Look at all the people you have at the company. 20% of the people at the company are responsible for 80% of the output. Look at the Twitter example. What did they do? They cut 80%. They tried to keep the 20% that are responsible for the majority of the output, and they seem to have been successful. So it's very interesting that it was exactly 20% here. And what I think is going on, it's just an economic cycle, and money has become more expensive, and people are applying the Pareto principle, whether directly or indirectly, and making these slashes and seeing, hey, there's actually was like a lot of fluff. And by the way, conceptually, at least, the Pareto principle will always be true. Cut down. Now you just have 20% of the staff left doing 80% of the work. You could cut another 80%, another 80% and keep 80% of that output, increasing your profit margin as a percentage substantially. So as money becomes more expensive, we reduce and become more efficient. However, the total...
Well, hold on. Hold on, Mr. Slippery Slope. You're describing a totally different thing. That's not the Pareto principle. That's Zeno's paradox, where you can never get all the way to 100%. So you're saying just cut again, and then cut again, and then cut again. Well, we're getting 80% of that, and then cut again. We're still getting 80%. Like you're left with one guy at that point. You're not getting
and the AI.
Yeah. Right, one person in the AI.
Everyone else.
I am Twitter, and it's just one guy who's coding 72 hours a day.
All right. Well, I'm going to take it back to the AGI, which may or may not be coming, but you think more likely coming than not coming. And I want to ask you a question. It's going to seem out of left field, but did you have breakfast this morning?
I did have breakfast this morning. It was delicious.
I did not have breakfast, similar to this is going to be a hard name to pronounce. Guido Reichstader.
Yeah. Italian name, German name.
This is German. Reichstader sounds very German.
That was a very good German accent.
The rest of the episode will be...
Oh boy, we're going to run that through 11 labs and translate it back to normal, Hunter.
So, but this does connect. It connects back to Anthropic that we've been discussing. And apparently, I'll just stick with the first name. Guido is on a hunger strike, and he is not going to eat until Anthropic agrees to stop pursuing AGI, because he sees this as a potential world-ending technology, the doom technology.
I can understand why anyone would be against AGI. We talked about that earlier in this very episode. But a few moments ago, I think...
he ate a Cheerio or something?
No. Like, I'm saying that I would understand why anybody would be against the pursuit of AGI, given the vast potential for harm to society and individuals. I think Guido's probably going to stay hungry. I suspect that Anthropic's not going to say, because this one guy refuses to eat outside of our offices, we're going to, cease working toward the main thing that our whole company has been kind of about.
Is the potential of AGI different than the potential of nuclear energy? I could see this sort of same scenario where, we haven't discovered nuclear energy yet, the H-bomb, and there's people outside protesting or worried about the coming of nuclear. Is the coming of AGI similar, or is nuclear energy fundamentally different as a technological advancement than AGI?
I mean, yes, they're fundamentally different. One is a computer that can spit out words, and
the potential impact and the potential danger, right?
Well, nuclear weapons, and I mean the weapons here as opposed to nuclear energy, hold a very concrete amount of potential loss of life, whereas the expectation of AGI isn't weaponized AGI against people. Rather, it's that it would erode. Well, no, I'm asserting that the problem, maybe we should go talk to Guido, but I think that you're looking at AGI from a perspective of what is the shift that it does to the world. And it's not explodes cities. It's removes a lot of people from the workforce and obviates a lot of the society that we know and see today. People would fear a lot of change, but I don't think, unless you're watching Terminator and expecting those kinds of outcomes, I don't think AGI goes and blows up every population center on the planet.
So with nuclear, we have the threat of the mutually assured destruction, and one bomb goes off, all the bomb goes off, the entire world ends on the bad side. And on the positive side, we have the promise of, it's the lunchbox size nuclear reactor that you have in your backyard and powers your house for your entire lifetime. And basically free energy. That's the positive and the negative. And it's the two potentials going back and forth. From the AGI perspective, we have the possibility of coming close to turning ourselves into gods, and we can just do absolutely anything because we just tell the AGI to do it. But on the negative side, destroying the global workforce is pretty darn close to destroying the world, number one. And then number two, people are definitely very concerned, outside of the AI becoming sentient and the Terminator scenario, but that we are going to be using this technology in weapons of war. I mean, you've got Anthropic right here saying, do not use our technology in wars, in these drones that are flying over, making decisions and systematically executing people that it determines, with the backing of the government, are, bad actors. That ship that may or may not have drugs that's going on, blow the darn thing up because Claude said so. People are absolutely concerned about that.
Removing people from positions of important decision making, I think, is something to be highly concerned about. And we'll also probably see a lot more of that happening. You're seeing this with automation of battlefield robots and decision making, and starting to toy around with putting some weapons on them and so on. And it's all very small steps. It didn't go from there is nothing to its full Terminator robots on the field, but we're using AI to help identify the enemies that this thing already sees. So there's some machine learning. It's not AI, it's just machine learning. It's a totally different thing, right? And then there's one more step, and there's one more step. So, yes, I can see why Guido would be saying, please stop pursuing AGI, as broadly defined as that is. Is AGI battlefield weapons? Is AGI a complete removal of a large chunk of the workforce? Yes. Yes to both. No to neither. No to both. We don't know what the world is going to bring, but I do think that if we get to AGI, if we go even more in that direction, we're going to see huge shockwaves, whether it be that 70% of new hires for low-level tech jobs or otherwise. once humanoid robots can start doing warehousing work and driving, we've talked about that before. 10% of the US workforce drives stuff for a living. If 2/3 of all of the workforces don't have a job anymore, wealth inequality will absolutely go up, at least in the short term. There will probably be revolutions and wars and so on associated with it. And then I think the dust will settle, and hopefully, I like to think, for a better world in the end. I don't know for sure, though.
I know for sure, or at least there's a recent study that Americans are becoming more and more concerned, and they're concerned about AI taking over, AI interfering with their lives, feeling just sort of helpless to the AI that seems to be inserting itself into these conversations, and the media that they're consuming is a growing trend. There was a new study that came out. It talked about, I guess, personal involvement and how people want to stay out of what they call personal domains like dating and like religion, suggesting there's no place for AI and things like that. They said acceptable use cases were weather prediction. They were okay.
I saw that. Yeah.
If you want to say whether it's going to rain, we'll allow the AI there.
That's fine. Yeah.
But,
weather prediction, that took away human jobs.
Which is still horrible, by the way. Weather
we used to have shamans that would cast the shells on the ground and say, well, it looks like it's going to rain this week. I think of the shamans, Hunter.
I think the most, the shamans are out of jobs now. Like we used to have this thriving shaman workforce, and what are they supposed to do now that we have ChatGPT?
Yep. But we've saved lives from all the human sacrifice that we're not doing, chucking maidens into volcanoes for a good harvest season or whatever. I'm going to say that that's definitely AI that's saving those lives, for sure. Yeah.
I guess
so people are, many, most, whatever, it said 73% of people saying, absolutely not. We don't want AI in religion. I think a while ago I mentioned that someday we're going to have like a robot priest. I don't know which religion will allow it first.
Priests. That has already happened. Maybe not officially sanctioned by the diocese, but I think we have had robot priests. There are rumors of AI-centered churches in Silicon Valley. I don't know if you've ever heard any of that gossip.
Right. That gossip or that gospel?
Ooh.
That was pretty good. So we know Hunter has no line because we talked about that a couple of episodes ago. But most people say, like, dating and religion.
Well, I think that was
we
my
don't
line.
need AI for that.
I said if I ever found myself actually dating an AI, I would have crossed that line.
There is a line.
That's
it's just
line.
Like his line's way out to the side.
Just because it doesn't appeal to me. So if it did happen,
using AI for dating, I assume this is like trying to send the messages back and forth to try and get like a Tinder date.
Yeah.
For example, or analyzing the messages from a, prospective boyfriend or girlfriend, be like, does this person actually like me? I'm pretty sure most people might say, oh, I don't want AI in that. But then they realize, especially for guys with how tough it is out there in the dating world, I'll use every tool at my disposal to try and get the 2 likes that are possibly out there right now. That dating just seems like an arms race these days when it comes to incorporating technology. I'm very glad I'm not in the dating pool right now. Everything I've heard seems like it's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I would imagine the platform should just integrate that stuff. I mean, it's all about making connections with people.
Yeah.
And it definitely seems like something that we don't use AI enough for is just connecting people, right? Getting that human connection back.
Using AI to connect people. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not encourage the connection, try to get to that point where people are actually talking, just like we are now talking with our listeners. This is a connection, right?
You want your robot to basically say like, hey, I think I found you 2 new friends.
Yeah. Show up here. Show up here.
Right. I've organized, here's your date. It's like a speed dating thing. There's 6 people, maybe at least 2 of you are going to hook up. I don't know, whatever. Go get a coffee. That's the future that Hunter envisions for the robots.
We've talked about the scenario before where it would build a digital persona and then have your digital persona go on virtual dates with other digital personas and then evaluate and then come back. All right, this one, it's got some promise.
And the AI therapist to come to you and say, look, bud, you've got some rough edges. We've got to work on these 3 things that are like core to your personality right now. Please. Your AI is not killing it out there.
It's a wild, wild world out there.
Yeah.
But at least
if you want more AI dating tips and religious advice, Where should you go to find it, Hunter?
It's definitely not. They might be self-aware. Insane if that's where you're getting it. But I'm not going to judge. And if that is where you'd like to get it, there's an easy way, which is hit the subscribe button, give us a little like, a little comment, so we can interact, and you can push the narrative even further. And we read every comment, and we try to respond and get in there and respond, react, evolve. There's some rumors that we are AI, Daniel. I don't know if you saw those.
And I might be generally intelligent. Am I AGI?
I'm not going to answer that.
There's no faking that noise. You know Hunter's real.
Yeah. Definitely real.
He's stuck in a loop.
Definitely real.
Reboot him.
Whether you're watching on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, listening on Apple Podcasts, listening on Spotify, I just know that you found something here with They Might Be Self-Aware. And we hope that you stick around for more. We're on twice a week, and we will be back soon with yet another episode of...
He got stuck again.
They might be self-aware.